2019. It's now 7 p.m., and if everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we're not Minnesota. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Present.
Vice Chair Heck.
Present.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Here.
Commissioner McGraw.
Here.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Present.
Commissioner Uli. Madam Chair, Commissioner Uli could not be here today. She's feeling under the weather.
Under the weather.
Way under the weather.
I'd like to be under this weather. Gee. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for consideration of approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Consideration and approval of the regular meeting minutes of May 14, 2019. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the minutes from the May 14th, 2019 regular meeting.
We have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
No.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 against. Motion passes, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the public hearings. The first is a presentation, discussion of a public hearing and consideration of possible revocation of case CUP-4-17.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rudy Esquinas. I'm the Senior Planner. Madam Chair, this is a staff-initiated item. Back in November of 2017, the Commission approved case CUP 417, which was actually the second amendment to a conditional use permit originally approved in 2014 for approving Perpetual Healthcare LLC's plans for permanent facilities on a property at 1575 East 18th Avenue. The facility is a medical marijuana cultivation and infusion kitchen facility. The original CUP 214 basically allowed the facility, and then there were some ownership group changes. Some mobile minis were brought in without permits, so CUP 215 then approved the mobile minis, gave the applicants a certain time frame in which to make permanent improvements on the property and come back with a final CUP request, which is the nature of CUP 417, approved the conceptual final building on the property, established time frames by which time everything was supposed to be completed, required a few other conditions of approval, including that the building permit for the permanent building be applied for, issued within 180 days of the effective date of the resolution, CUP 417, that the C of O for the building be issued before November 21st, 2019, which was a 2-year time limit to get the building approved, permitted, and reviewed, and built. And that lot combination for the 2 lots on which the facility exists be combined, and that the property be connected to sewer. We're at about 20 months later. The applicants have not complied with the above conditions. So therefore, and in discussion with the owner and the applicant's attorney, and also you see some correspondence in our staff report back and forth, it does not appear that the proprietors of the facility are going to move forward with a permanent facility with sewer hookup, with lot combo, or anything else. So we're bringing this back to you for revocation. The applicants, like I said, have not requested another continuance. However, we did receive today a letter which I put on your at your desk. It's a letter from the underlying property owner, Mr. House. He is not one of the operators of Perpetual Healthcare. He's the landlord, And I think he, if I understand his letter correctly, he was asking the opportunity to go back to the original CUP approval in case, you know, in case another facility operator wants to move in. Well, the way our CUPs are structured is they go with applicants. We want to know the people that are running these places. We want, our PD wants to, you know, have their agent information, their agent cards, the surprise inspections, site visits, and all that good stuff. I don't think Mr. House has a license to operate a dispensary in Arizona, so it really makes no sense to leave the CUP on the property, and that's why we came up with this extra condition. It's kind of a catch-all. Actually, I don't think we need it, but we're recommending it anyway, just to be perfectly clear that all CUPs are being recommended for revocation on the property. Very briefly, the property is located at the southwest corner of 18th and Tomahawk, right across the street from the new Bella Agave subdivision. Old West Highway is just a little bit north of the property up here in this general area. We have not received any comments from any neighboring property owners. Mr. House has sent a letter, which I spoke about right now, requesting that the original CUP be kept in place, possibly allow for a new medical marijuana group to use the property. Our opinion is that any new applicants are required to apply for a CUP anyway, so it's kind of a, I don't think it's something we can do. So our recommendation, we recommend expiration and subsequent revocation of CUP 417 because of noncompliance with conditions, including that they never got their building permit. The permit submittal that we received was reviewed once. The applicants picked up the red line comments, and we never got a second submittal. Obviously, the C of O by November 21st, 2019 is extremely unlikely to happen. The lot combination has never initiated. The sewer connection, although there were some initial inquiries with our sewer district representatives, there was no real movement towards connecting the sewer either, and you have an email in your packets from Darren and Ben at the sewer district regarding their interactions with the applicants. And then the other thing is there has been some indication, you know, I mean, there's a lot of infighting going on between the owners, and there's been some indication that perhaps there's been some people on the property who shouldn't be there, who didn't have agent cards. Our officer, Lieutenant Tom Parker, is here tonight. Lieutenant Parker is the gentleman who has conducted some of the surprise visits to the property. Maybe he can speak a little bit more to that issue, but basically, you know, there's been allegations back and forth among various owners about who or who should not be on the property, and emails and pictures of people and stuff like that as well. So we are recommending that CUP 417 expire and be revoked at 12 a.m. November 21st, 2019, which was the original date everything was supposed to be finished by. Perpetual shall have ceased all operations, removed all our equipment from the facility at 1575 East 18th Avenue, including all the temporary buildings, the mobile minis, everything else they put out there, until 12 a.m. November 21st, 2019. Perpetual Health shall continue to abide by the conditions of CUP 417, including continuing to allow for unannounced inspections by our police department. Failure to abide by the conditions could be cause for notices of revocation being sent to the operators, and then a new recommended condition that wasn't in the original version of the staff report. Expiration and revocation of CUP 417 incorporates by reference and also revokes any previous approvals granted by CUP 214 or CUP 217. So if a new group comes along and they want to reestablish some kind of medical marijuana facility at 1575 East 18th, they would have to apply for a brand new CUP. They'd have to apply for a CUP anyway if it's a new ownership group. So in that sense, Mr. House's request was kind of neither here nor there. And it's it, Madam Chair, short and sweet. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The representatives are here. Lieutenant Parker is here if you have any questions for him.
Rudy, I have a couple questions that may not even be relevant, but can we revoke before November 21st?
Sure. The reason we picked that date, last week or a couple of weeks ago, we were lucky enough to accompany Lieutenant Parker on an inspection of all the medical marijuana facilities in town, and they've got a lot of stuff out there, a lot of equipment, a lot of stuff that's been built into walls, you know, filtering systems and duct work and A lot of stuff. The date of November 21st is their original expiration date. We figured that was more than enough reasonable time for them to get all their stuff out of there. I think Mr. House is also in agreement with that. Ms. Schube, who was representing the applicants, I believe, was also amenable to that. A representative from Gammage and Burnham is here tonight, in case you want to ask them directly, but that's why we picked November 21st.
Okay. Well, in conjunction with that then, and I'm not sure if I'm not understanding something, but are they able to still continue the operation of the business as it is until November 21st?
In our site visit, it appears that all of the cultivation has been phased out. I mean, we literally saw hundreds of dead plants, and I don't think they're growing anymore. The big grow room was completely empty, and the attic is the only building that still had a few plants. Most of them were dead. And our understanding in speaking with the facilities manager was that they're continuing the cultivation kitchen part of the business, but no longer doing the cultivating, and even that's winding down.
But they're still not in compliance with even the kitchen part of it. I mean, are they like looked at two separate things?
Well, they still
Growing
have the mobile minis out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not going to build the permanent building, so that the mobile minis, the trailers, those are the other items that need to be removed by the property by November 21st.
But that's what I'm kind of, this is all like rolled into one ball of wax when we actually have the cultivation and the kitchen are two separate things going on, right? And I mean,
in the same facility,
and
right?
It was, yeah, but I mean, we're telling them they haven't done what they wanted to do, what they asked us to do. They came to us, and they haven't done anything. So are we going to let them keep on doing the kitchen part of it until November when they're not doing anything anyway? I mean, do we have to let them keep doing that, or is that so separate, the kitchen part of it, that they're not out of compliance with that or something?
Yeah, well, no, it's all wrapped up into CUP 417.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Madam
how to
Chair.
answer that
I
question.
can, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
the way I'm understanding it is that operations as far as grow and anything else is essentially ceased.
Yes.
And the reason that the CUP will be in place at least until 11/21 is just simply for cleanup.
To allow them to continue wind down and phase out and move stuff out, yes.
So if, in the conditions of the revocation, if that's indicated that cease all operations
Yes.
and only clean up and to clean up the property in essence, that's what it sounds like to me. That's
Okay.
being recommended by staff.
We're not suggesting that they stop all infusion operations tomorrow.
Okay.
What we're saying is by November 21st, everything's need to be done, over with, stuff out of the facility.
Okay.
But that's not a problem then. You're not in compliance, but yeah, you can continue operating
Well,
until,
the
for 6 more months.
417, the nature of that approval was really for the permanent facility and for sewer hookup and for lot combination. Those things aren't going to be done.
Yeah.
The infusion kitchen has been part of the operation since day one, and like I said, that appears to be winding down as well.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, you can, to answer your question, you can. Just how much time do you want to give them to remove their stuff? And do you want to let them continue with operations until
Yeah.
then? It's only 4 months. And I think the representative might address that issue. But they had a due process right to bring forward a CUP application. It was passed. They were supposed to do conditions. They didn't meet the conditions. You then extended it. And so that's what we're here for today.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I could ask Lieutenant Parker a question in reference to the violations on site. I'm curious, since these laws came after I retired, I'm not familiar with a lot of them. If there's a violation on site that's identified by you, what action do you take, and is that something that we need to take into consideration for a CUP?
That's not really a simple question to answer. It really depends on what the violation is being found. And in particular, these violations, it's actually directly with the city in regards to the conditional use permit, not anything to do with the state law concerning the marijuana field in itself.
Okay, so then any violations would actually end up going to the state as far as a violation notification?
If there's a marijuana violation, then that would be through the Arizona Department of Health Services, correct?
Okay, and they're the governing body over that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Rudy, I had another one. Well, I had two, actually. Clarify, because I don't think this is clear with a couple of us. If we revoke the CUPs, does this business revert back to what it was before the first CUP was ever granted to operate this business?
Right, it goes back to being an
Whatever it
industrial
was.
zoned property.
Right, it was an auto
Right.
place or whatever.
Yeah, before Perpetual Healthcare came along, I think they were like an auto wrecking business.
Right.
Not that they're going to go back to being
No,
an
no,
auto
no.
wrecking business.
But it was just an auto repair
Yes.
business of sorts.
Right.
And it was a business district, but it had nothing to do with
Correct.
marijuana or anything
it-
else.
it's a
So, and
B5
that's what it'll
industrial zone
revert back to.
Yes. Yeah, the zoning is not changing. The zoning has always been B5. The conditional use allowed the medical marijuana
Yeah.
activity on the property. When that goes away, it's still going to be zone B5.
Okay. The only other thing has nothing to do with a question here, but I want to just make a suggestion from what I was reading, that working with the police, in the future, not for this location, but any location, we probably should have some kind of a system in place or make it a requirement that you can't get into a building without a badge that you're allowed to get into. Apparently, they have a lot of people that shouldn't be walking in and out. I don't know how they're getting in and out, how they're allowed or whatever, but just to keep that in mind for future.
Agreed, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? I've gabbed enough.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
All right, Rudy, couple questions. So the time allowed to clean up, does that mean removing virtually everything with the exception of the original permanent buildings that were there? Everything else has to be removed?
Right, the mobile minis, any equipment that was related to the cultivation and the infusion kitchen, anything that belongs to Perpetual Healthcare should be removed from the building. Obviously, Mr. House owns the buildings and probably some ancillary equipment that was there not related to medical marijuana.
Okay.
Yes, that would be our
Right.
expectation.
So, in just considering the fact that this situation has been non-compliant for probably a better part of the time we've dealt with them, what happens if we hit November 21st and they've not?
We
not-
start issuing notices of violation and possibly citing people into court and
Okay,
talking to the judge, getting fines, our normal code compliance process.
Okay.
And we would also, of course, we're going to inform the Arizona Department of Health Services that the CUP is expiring on November 21st.
good, thank you. One last question then. Obviously, this issue about persons not permitted to access this property, obviously, Lieutenant Parker, you identified that. Here we are, we're closing down, and there apparently are still some marijuana plants in some degree of decline, but there still could be, are we still keeping track in case anybody goes in there and starts to try and haul off any of the items? that
What we
are
are suggesting is that Lieutenant Parker or another one of our fine police officers be allowed to continue doing surprise inspections. So yes, we will continue the inspection regime up until the day they're supposed to move out.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commission Member Heck, and also Mr. Kreidler, I believe, and you're correct, DHS does have rules for access. So they're supposed to follow the rules. And if they're in violation of those types of rules, and if an officer happens to see it, then that's a problem. And that could be reported to DHS, and then DHS could send out its own people to verify that they are in compliance. We don't know who's going in or out because we're not there all day long, and we don't have the ability to control who comes in and out. I don't think we even get the logs. Is that correct? We don't get the logs. Is that correct?
Correct, we're not getting logs like
Yeah.
we were supposed to.
Okay.
Man, these guys.
But is it just a written log? I mean, they could just let people in and just not have them log in.
We're supposed to have employee lists, and only employees are supposed to be on that property with an
How?
actual dispensary agent card.
But you still know that people are going in and out that aren't
Correct.
supposed to. Does that get reported to the state? Has it been?
In regards of what we're aware of, yes.
Yeah.
In regards of any on-view violations that the owners or management knows of, that I don't know.
Okay. Willie?
Madam Chair, I just wonder, they can continue to do the in and out without the proper attire. So are we going to step up the unannounced inspections, or are you going to stay on the cycle that you're on? Because it just makes me kind of uneasy to know, first of all, they didn't comply. Second of all, people are just going in and out. So there's something wrong with this process.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Howard, the emails, the correspondence that we received back and forth alleged that people had been on the property that didn't have the medical marijuana agent card, including one of the owners or one of the owner's wives, including an ex-employee. I don't think I don't think Lieutenant Parker ever personally witnessed, and Lieutenant Parker, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Lieutenant ever actually witnessed or found a person on site that did not have a card. I might be wrong. But it's, it's people fighting and arguing with each other. To the best of my knowledge, we have not caught anybody red-handed.
Correct. The things that were, so in a nutshell, the owners are not agreeing, and the owners are calling us and tipping us off of what's going on, sending us surveillance photos of who's not on the property. So we're getting the evidence to support what they're saying, but when we do our surprise inspections, and we have increased our surprise inspections to answer that question.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you.
No more?
Madam Chair, I had a question for Joel, I guess, is what Lieutenant Parker was asking me, is could we add a sixth condition that would say if the police department went there and people did not have their cards, that would be, we could revoke it sooner than November 21st, so we could give them 15 days or 30 days or something sooner than that. Would that?
Or should they decide not to allow us to continue to do our surprise inspections?
Madam Chair, and yes, you can add a condition, but you don't have to have that condition, because you can revoke it. You can come back for another hearing tomorrow if you want it. If you heard about, have a special meeting if you heard about horrible violations. But I'm not sure that's the case. You can ask the applicant's attorney when they get up. But you can do that. You can do that. But and I would think if you actually see a violation, you're probably going to report it to DHS, and you don't want DHS on you, especially when you're a medical marijuana cultivation company. You don't want that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I got a question. Have they been caught in any violations?
Have they been what?
Have they been caught in any violations? So far, all I've heard is alleged. Have they been caught at anything?
Well, the violations itself is not meeting the actual CUP requirements, so yes. In regards to the medical marijuana and the dispensary card agent, the photos and items that are sent to us, we do know that there's people on there that they cannot tell us who they are with the card, and they're supposed to display that. They have not been able to display that, so I would consider that a violation, because we cannot prove that that person is who they are and with their ID. They're supposed to provide that.
And has that been reported to DHS?
That has been reported. Again, in regards of the employees themselves or the owners, I don't know how many times that's been reported, but I
I'm
do
saying
know.
on our side.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else have any more questions for Rudy? Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Would who am I dealing with?
Representatives, Madam
Representatives. I couldn't think of the word. It's not an applicant.
Yes, ma'am.
They applied for CUP revocation.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's true.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. For your records, my name is Mike Merowitz with the law firm of Gammage and Burnham. I'm here on behalf of Perpetual Healthcare, who is the current operator of the facility and the, as you had noted, the applicant of the conditional use permit. I want to start simply by thanking the city and city staff for working with us and the applicants over these last 5 years since the conditional use permit was approved. As staff can attest, this site has not been without its challenges, and recently the business operators have taken a look at some of the hard costs associated with development at the site and some of the infrastructure improvements that would be needed to conduct the permanent facility, including connecting to sewer, and have determined that it simply doesn't pencil out for them to continue operations long-term. I do not have a long presentation plan for you, as we do we do support the staff's recommendation to revoke the conditional use permit and for it to become effective on November 21st. That date will give the business operators a reasonable amount of time to start removing their equipment and prepare to wind down their business. It's also the date in which some of the time-sensitive conditions actually become effective, and so at the time of the approval of the most recent amendment to the conditional use permit, it was stipulated that they would obtain certificates of occupancies within 2 years. Building permits were applied for, and then, of course, after kind of running through some of the business costs, now within 2 years, if the certificate of occupancy is not obtained, and now they've made the determination not to go forward with that, on November 21st, that's when that stipulation will become effective. And so we think that's consistent with the stipulations, and also will give them a reasonable amount of time to start, winding down their business operations. Before concluding, I do want to address the concerns about the medical marijuana, the need for medical marijuana agent cards for all the employees at the business. I cannot actually speak to the wife that was on the facility, that I don't have knowledge of, but as noted in the staff report and our discussions with Perpetual Healthcare, there were 2 isolated incidents in which there were trainees or their former employees training now current employees at the site. The Arizona Department of Health Services, the state regulations do allow for escorts for persons without medical marijuana agent cards to be on the facility as long as they are escorted. And so in talking with Perpetual Healthcare, their understanding at that time was that was compliant with those state regulations. But within the last 4 or 5 months, Perpetual Healthcare has taken this issue seriously, and they have provided now updated correspondence to the city's police department with a current list of all employees. And most recently, earlier this month, they provided an updated list of employees alongside proof that all of those current employees do in fact have medical marijuana agent cards as issued by the Arizona Department of Health Services. While they prepare to wind down their business operations and remove their equipment, they're prepared to continue to provide updates to the city's police department to ensure that that's being complied with. And they welcome on unannounced inspections to continue to happen. We welcome staff also visiting the site as they wind down to ensure that that's all being complied with. And so with that, we respectfully request that you support staff's recommended motion to revoke the conditional use permit effective on November 21st, and I'm happy to help answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Madam Chair, so I guess I'm going back to kind of the pattern of non-compliance with Perpetual, and now we're giving them essentially 4 months to do this, and based on what I would describe as their lack of veracity and being compliant and trying to hold things accountable. I'm just curious, what assurances do we have, other than the fact that we can bring this back to the commission again? But I mean, we're trying to be reasonable, I think, but we've been reasonable a number of times, and it seems to have backfired on us. What assurances do we have that they're gonna stick by this, and that they're gonna make sure that they're not further violating and certainly allowing any of the product to walk off the property without anybody knowing?
Yep. We've had discussions with Perpetual Healthcare of late, and they are fully aware of the fact that if this conditional use permit is revoked as recommended by staff, that when it comes November 21st, they're out of there. And they, requested that they at least have some time to wind down their business operations, and there's a lot of equipment on site. And so when we were discussing with staff, we sort of determined that November 21st date, given the stipulations and the time that would take to remove that would be a fair date. But they're fully aware, and we've made them aware of the fact that you have, once those 4 months are up, you're out of there. And they, I think have demonstrated at least now an effort of the realization that, there are going to be unannounced police inspections, and that they're going to continue to update the city's police department, and they have been doing that, and we have a correspondence of them, providing the information. So we'll make, sure that they continue to do that. It's one of the recommended conditions that staff would like attached to this revocation, and we're okay with that.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Before I open this up for discussion, I have a question for staff. The conditions of this revocation, in addition, would planning and development wish any kind of periodic update, weekly, monthly, between now and November 21st, of what is going on every week, every month? I
We
mean,
want an update?
do you guys,
From the applicants or
Yeah.
from Mr. the
whoever,
gentleman here?
from
Sure.
whoever's I mean, do you see it necessary, or do we just go from here and say, okay, you have to be done by November 21st, and we have no idea what they're doing until November 21st?
I think a monthly update would be a good idea, Madam Chair.
So would that need to be a condition number 5?
You can make, or condition number 6.
Yeah.
Yes, you can add that to the conditions, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, can you clarify that? Do you want an update from the attorney, or do you want it from staff?
What do you recommend? I
I
mean,
guess I'd like to think it would
from
be,
a,
if Perpetual's they gotta commit to this.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll of course defer to staff, but we would be committed to provide monthly updates if that's what you would
Okay.
like to see.
Madam
And
Chair,
Matt-
yes,
aren't we going down a slippery slope? What kind of updates are we now looking for?
just what, from today, tomorrow?
I mean, but what?
Sure.
What is it that we want to know every month? If that nail got pulled out, or if that door
Well-
got shut, or, I mean,
I agree, yeah. I suppose it could be just generically what they are doing. I mean, we don't have to get,
And I guess I don't disagree with it, only because of the failure of Perpetual to really be trying to cooperate with us at all. What's to say we don't get to November 20th and they're like,
they haven't done anything,
well, yeah, and I'll start,
then there's all the other things that'll fall into place,
yeah.
and
Well, I mean, that's an option. We could just wait till November 21st and shut it down and, whatever.
Madam Chair, Lieutenant Parker and I communicate fairly regularly. If there are any issues that Lieutenant discovers, we can certainly bring those to your
Okay.
attention immediately.
I mean, I just brought that up because I didn't know if it would be helpful in any way. But if it's not that,
On our visit, it's clearly to me that they're winding down.
okay,
The one greenhouse was completely empty, devoid of anything. The bottling thing that they were doing is completely shut down, locked up. They're really down to, I think, one room that was in a mini mobile. And we walked upstairs, and it looks like they're just, nothing's growing, everything's winding down. The only thing that's really operating was the kitchen. So now, to me, 30 days out, so on September 21st, if it doesn't look like they're able to get everything out in 30 days, then I think that's when we re-notify them. But we start a misdemeanor zoning case on November 22nd is really what our real remedy is.
okay.
But that would go against the property owner, I
Not
suppose. and-
necessarily. Not necessarily. It could be on whoever's committing any violations. But do you want a written report, or do you want an in-person report? I didn't understand what
I
you
was-
want.
I'm not saying that we should, I'm just asking,
Okay.
is that something that would be helpful? And it sounds like to me, like staff doesn't have that concern, they'll deal with the way they've been dealing with it, and we'll,
I mean, I
I
guess.
think the attorneys for them have been very forthcoming with us. We know them. So I guess they'll give us updates. We can pass them on to you in a director's report, whatever you want. But to me, if the real signal will be is if 30 days out, there's really not a lot of movement, then,
Okay.
because that's at least several weeks to get the rest of it out of there, I would
And
think.
you'd feel comfortable between staff and Lieutenant Parker, you'd feel comfortable to make that assessment, saying, yeah, they're 30 days out and they've got a long way
They
to
don't
go,
look like
so-
they're doing anything. They're
Okay.
still
All right.
fully
Okay.
operational.
All right,
Yeah.
well, I guess that'll,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
okay.
because I wasn't requesting that we be notified. I didn't know if it would be helpful if staff was notified, periodically, monthly, weekly, whatever. Okay, forget
Madam
that.
Chair?
Yes.
I got one more question.
Sure.
Lieutenant Parker. Do we feel that the public's safe and there's no illegal activity going on there as the way everything's sitting right now? Does the police department feel comfortable enough with the situation at this point?
There's no safety or threat concerns to the community or anything. It does appear that they're trying to keep their name intact. It's just more of a dispute between the business owners.
Okay.
Okay. No more questions for anybody? Any other discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Isn't this a public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We do have a public hearing
We
too,
have a
Matt.
public hearing. Would anyone in the public like to speak? If so, please come down to the lectern and provide your name and address.
My name is Scott Tiedemann. I'm speaking on behalf of the property owner, David House. David was an original party to the original CUP 214. He was not a party to the follow-on amendments to the original CUP. And Dave has no objection to the revocation of the most recent amendment, CUP 417. And has no problem rolling back 215, which merely amended the original CUP to acknowledge that the tenant had installed some facilities on site inappropriately. So 215 acknowledged and permitted those facilities, but also conditioned the tenant to come back with another CUP for a permanent facility, which they failed to do because it didn't pencil out. And I apologize for not addressing the commission formally, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, other members. Their violations of the CUP were simply that they did not carry through with the plans to put up a permanent facility. So it was not really a serious, industry violation or a serious CUP violation. They just couldn't meet the conditions of the CUP. The only serious violation was that there were some people on site that perhaps hadn't been properly registered on site. The attorney was quite correct in saying that the state requirements allow people to be on site as long as they are fully escorted by a permanently or a properly credentialed dispensary agent. The CUPs established a higher standard of performance, and they said that anybody that's going to be on the facility needed to register for a background check with the Apache Junction Police Department. So the only violation was that there were some people on site who hadn't been properly credentialed and checked in through the door. That was the most serious violation. Everybody has full expectations that Perpetual Health is going to be off-site, including the owner has full expectations, because Perpetual Health have said they're going to be off-site. They said the business doesn't work the way it's working. So I fully believe they're going to be off-site. As far as the property owner is concerned, the sooner the better. So, but going back to the original CUP, what the property owner would prefer would not to have to go and replow old ground, getting that site, that address, which is what the CUP first attaches to, the address, and therefore the business owner or the property owner, not to have to replow old ground to get that site recognized as a site that is properly approved by the city of Apache Junction to be industry related in the marijuana industry. Should a new tenant be interested in Mr. House's property, he would only prefer that the CUP 214 not be formally revoked, but be left in place and old ground not have to be replowed. That would be his only request, as well as he had a container, storage container on site. It's a mini, but it's not hooked up to electricity. It was only a storage container. That will probably remain on site. But all the other inappropriate structures will be removed by Perpetual Health. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. What, if we revoke this, that takes it clear back to,
We understand, I'm sorry, if I can amend my, the property owner understands that if any new business comes in, they need to reapply, them as a group, the property owner and the new tenant, need to reapply for a new CUP. The property owner fully understands that.
okay. This business this revocation will revert this back to what it was before the medical marijuana kitchen was ever there. Any new business, whether it's marijuana or anything else that is outside the zoning, would have to apply for a CUP, correct?
Yes, what happens is if you revoke this CUP, they have certain rights right now for different types of uses. So what a conditional use permit does, it gives them the ability to have a new use. This is the medical marijuana cultivation use. By revoking this, that takes that away.
Takes it
So
away.
anybody who wants to, if they want to go to Mr. House and say, hey, I'd like to rent that, and I want to have a cultivation center there, well, they have to apply for a CUP. It's not a matter of, it's not outright. And neighborhood conditions change. And so if you know, and you do know because you approved the zoning for the piece across the street, and that is Mr. Kaufman's subdivision. And so some of those people would get a notice, it's within 300 feet, and they may object, and they have a right to object because it's within 300 feet. So you got to consider that also, because things change in a neighborhood. And who knows how long it's going to be before Mr. House is going to be approached with another endeavor for medical marijuana cultivation.
Right. But there's no way that we could say, well, we're going to revoke the CUP, but if another medical marijuana place wants to move in, they can still do that because that's still in place. It's not in place because we've revoked the CUP.
Correct. Under and Rudy and Larry can correct me, but under our code, medical marijuana cultivation, as well as a dispensary, has to be approved by a CUP.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to clarify. I knew that, but I wanted to clarify it. Any more discussion? Okay, I'll call for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission revoke case CUP-4-17. That's Planning and Zoning Commission Resolution Number CUP-4-17. A conditional use permit amendment to cases CUP-2-14 and CUP-2-15, approving Perpetual Healthcare's plans for a permanent building expansion to a nonprofit medical marijuana cultivation and infusion kitchen facility located at 1575 East 18th Avenue, which included the eventual removal of all temporary mobile minis and trailers and constructing a new permanent third building on the property because of the following findings. And I submit findings A, B, and C from the July 2nd, 2019 staff report, and subject to the following conditions. And I submit conditions 1 through 4 from the July 2nd, 2019 staff report, and add a 5th condition, which is expiration, number 5 being expiration and revocation of CUP-4-17, incorporates by reference and also revokes any and all approvals granted under CUP-2-14 and CUP-2-15.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy?
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanshey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of conditional use permit CUP 1-19, an application by 88 Trails Corporation, represented by Chris Baxla of Signs Plus. Rudy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, Rudy Esquivia, Senior Planner. This is a new conditional use permit request. The property that we're talking about is at the southeast corner of Ironwood and Apache Trail. Gas station, convenience mart, been there a long time. According to the assessor's information, the original Texaco station was built back in 1979, just about a year after the city incorporated. The property is also zoned B2 under our current zoning ordinance. B2 is general commercial, also known as Old West Commercial. In 2004, after the city had done street improvements in the area, Texaco applied to erect a new monument sign to replace the one that is still there today, and they also applied for new signs on the building. Because of the recent improvements on Ironwood that had transpired, and because of drawings that Texaco themselves turned in as part of a Board of Adjustment case, it was discovered that the monument sign was actually encroaching into the Apache Trail right-of-way, and under our codes, it could not be replaced where it stood. The property has changed hands several times since Texaco owned it. It became a shell, and then the little shell station was owned by at least probably 3 different ownership groups. And over the years, legal staff, planning staff have tried working with the business owners to get the sign out of the right-of-way without success. The businesses on the property have been pretty continuous throughout the years, and a lot of meetings, but the sign's still there. And then finally, between September of 2017 and July 2018, our business license office informed us that there had not been an active business on the property for about 10 months. Under our code, it says that if a business use is discontinued on a property for 6 months or more, then a sign is considered abandoned. So that old non-conforming sign, we now had a concrete reason, a codified reason to say, all right, folks, the sign's got to go. And even then, we tried working with the new owners on voluntary removal of the sign back late last year, or last year when they were applying for the liquor license. Larry actually made a couple of field visits to the property. We thought we had made some progress, but the sign is still there. And finally, in your packets, you have a copy of a notice of violation that went out to the owners saying, okay, folks, the sign's got to go. And that's what basically prompted this conditional use permit request. However, and this graphic here basically shows the sign, the north half of the sign structure is actually encroaching in the right-of-way. These yellow lines here, they're approximate only. These are not survey lines, but they're pretty close. They're ortho-rectified. Our GIS department develops these graphics, and we can clearly see the sign encroaching in the right-of-way. And by the way, this drawing also, this graphic also closely reflects the information that was actually shown on the Texaco Alta survey that we got back in 2004. So, 88 Trails Corporation now owns the property. Mr. Baxla is here tonight representing them. He works with Signs Plus. They're requesting approval of a conditional use permit to be allowed to put signs on the canopy that are larger than the city sign code normally allows. Mr. Baxla and I did correspond back and forth quite a bit and looked at the possibility of putting new monument signs on the property, maybe up in the northeast corner, maybe down the southwest corner, because of the concrete, because of the utility easements, because of the underground facilities that are there. Trying to locate 1 or 2 new monument signs in the property was determined to be difficult, unfeasible by the new owners. So they thought, well, what if we put some nice new larger signs on the canopy itself and forego the idea of monument signs? So basically the applicants are requesting signs on the canopy. Right now, our code typically allows for these little signs, about 15 square feet on each side of a canopy. The applicants are asking for canopy signs 41.5 square feet each on the west east, and south sides. And on the north side of the canopy, the side that is most visible from Apache Trail, they're asking for a 53 square foot sign. The applicants will remove the sign that's in the right-of-way, and they will forego the placement of new monument signs on the property. This is what the proposed signs look like. This would be the north face of the old Shell station with the new Marathon Gas, by the way, a new business coming to the community. And the north sign is kind of balanced. Marathon logo is on the east side of the sign, and the price display is on the west side of the sign. So this is what you will see from Apache Trail. This is what you would see from the Shopper Supply parking lot. This is what you would see from Ironwood, and this is what you would see going north on Ironwood. So once again, 41.5 square foot signs on 3 sides of the canopy, and one larger sign balanced on both ends of the canopy on the north side. We send out all normal mailings and notices to surrounding property owners. We have received absolutely no comments on this request. We did do a little bit of an analysis in your staff report regarding the criteria for a CUP. You know, the property's already developed. They're not adding new buildings. They're not, you know, adding another story. So there wasn't a whole lot of analysis to go into, but we did look at possible enhancement of right-of-way. You take an encroachment out of the right-of-way, well, that could be considered an enhancement. And then there aren't any general plan issues, possible policy issue. We normally try to discourage signs that are larger than normally allowed. However, in this case, we felt that the canopy signs were a reasonable trade-off for the monument signs, and you know, reduce a little bit of the clutter that might be perceived along Apache Trail. And once again, the applicant's concern was that the existing improvements to hardscape made it, and plus location, made it difficult for placement of new monument signs. Planning Division recommends approval of this conditional use permit request for the following findings. The approval of the CUP will help resolve a long-existing right-of-way encroachment issue, reducing liability for the property owner and the city, improving the overall adequacy of adjacent roadways. Canopy signs propose no negative impacts relative to lighting, glare, dust, noise, deterioration of neighborhood, compatibility with surrounding uses, or conflicts with our general plan. Our recommended conditions of approval: that the signs be installed as depicted in the submitted materials, that the applicants forego the installation of monument signs, that any future signs be in compliance with our sign code, that any future deviations will require a new CUP amendment subject to your approval, that the commission reserves the right to reconsider or overturn the CUP for any noncompliance, and lastly, the CUP is approved pursuant to our regulations in the city code, which are more specifically laid out in the recommended motion. These statements here are basically summaries of our recommended conditions. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Rudy? Now, this is under the canopy that's over the gas pumps and not the building. The building has its own signs.
Yes.
Okay. In the recommendations that you just read, number 3, future signs proposed to be attached to the building. Should that be the canopy?
No,
or is that the building?
Madam Chair, to the main building.
Okay.
Yeah, the convenience store building.
I just wanted to, we're talking about the canopy signs, and then that says to the building, and I was just wondering if I wanted clarification on that.
Good point, Madam Chair. We're
So, all right.
referring to the convenience store building.
Other businesses, they don't, I like this. I want to commend you guys for coming up with a different idea. I like this, the way it looks. And clarify for me, the only reason it's larger, it's not that they're any higher than when it was Shell.
Right.
It's because they're longer.
Yes.
That's what's making it
Exactly.
larger.
Yeah, and they're using the digital
Yeah.
price changers.
But
you know.
still, it's basically
It's
because
longer,
they're putting
yes,
more
ma'am.
on there, and not that they're,
Not
it's not
cost.
like when Ross came and wanted great big 30-foot high letters, you know?
Yes.
It's, okay. how does this, by us allowing them to put these signs on 4 sides, how does that compare with allowing other businesses to only have a sign on the front of their building? I mean.
Well, our sign code separates attached signs from detached signs. Every commercial property is allowed to have 1 monument sign per street frontage.
Yeah.
These folks could have had a sign on Ironwood, and they could have had a sign on Apache Trail, but the existing configuration of the property, the existing improvements made locating new monument signs difficult. If another business, say Circle K across the street or Quick Trip down the street, wanted to, looks at Marathon Gas and says, oh, that's pretty cool, we want to do that, and if they want to have bigger signs, they would come back to you with a CUP request exactly the same as Marathon Gas is doing.
Okay.
And we might recommend that they take down their monument sign, right?
Well, I thought you already did.
No, I'm talking about another,
Oh, future,
yeah.
future.
Yeah.
I thought, yes.
How long is this gonna take, Rudy?
To put up the signs,
Yeah, only one.
Mr. Baxla can answer that question. They apply for a permit, they get their drawings in, and it should be approved within a couple of weeks.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Rudy, it's a question. Is it possible to put in, is it appropriate to put in the conditions that they remove the monument sign before they do their other?
Then I don't want to do that.
Yes.
Well-
Well, they're already under an NOV. They pretty much have to remove the monument sign whether the CUP is approved or not.
Okay, my concern is it seems like everybody in the past just kind of avoided the compliant, and going and being willing to remove it, as long as,
We can hold up permits for the canopy signs if the monument sign is not removed.
Okay.
All right.
I was gonna actually ask that, but then I thought, well, then they'd quit advertising their business, because then they wouldn't have anything on. But,
yeah, I just want assurances that this time around, that monument sign is gonna go, and we're not gonna continue to have.
That is our intent, Vice Chair.
Madam Chair, I think too that they're gonna rebrand this whole thing. So while they're doing the canopy, then they're gonna be doing the pumps and they're gonna be doing everything all within a few days, I would think.
okay.
I did want to note that condition number 1 requires that the gas price stay at $2.49 forever too. So I think that's how I read it.
Why? I want it down at $1.99. Oh, is that what we're approving
Yeah,
per liter?
can we make that a condition?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of our conditions, $1.99 a gallon, forever. Anybody else? Steve? Sir? Anybody? Willie? Nobody?
Nope.
Nobody?
I love it.
So do I. I like them. Thanks, Rudy.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Would the applicant like to speak with us?
Rudy handled it very well. If you have any questions.
No, come on down and give us your name and address.
My name's Chris. If you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them, but I would like to add that the owner and the fuel distributor also want to get rid of that ugly sign that's out there. The problem is, we don't want to remove it prior to getting our permits because we can't order signs until we get our permits, which take 4 to 6 weeks to get and then another 2 weeks to schedule the install. The business will have no way to advertise their gas prices. It would essentially shut them down for 4 to 6 weeks. So we are going to remove the sign, yes. Obviously, one thing that they can do is they can hold up the final inspection, which would null and void the permit if we fail to remove that sign. And, that's something you can hold against us. But without the permits in our hands, we're not going to start fabricating the signs. And, yeah, we want it down as much as anyone else. But without being able to put the price on the canopy, we can't compete against with the Circle K across the street. And it would just basically shut them down for 4 to 6 weeks.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So Chris, when is this gonna be completed? If everything goes according to plan?
We can get permits in about, you say, 1 to 2 weeks. Once we get that, it'll take us 4 to 6 weeks to build the signs. And then, once we have them built, we'll get them scheduled and installed within 2 weeks of that. So 2 plus 6 plus 2, we're looking at about 10 weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that an issue?
No.
So do we want to change? Do we need to change anything? No, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Just wanna make sure it wasn't a 6-month project.
Yeah, really.
No, we're in a hurry. We want to get this branded. We actually wanted this to be the first marathon in the state. And unfortunately, Tucson's gonna beat you by about 2 weeks.
With signs like that?
With the first marathon gas station in Arizona.
But are they gonna have signs on their canopy like this?
They already have signs on their canopy. They're actually going the other direction. We're gonna take those down, and we're just putting letters on theirs, and we're gonna put 2 monuments up at that location, which we really wanted to do here. We did. But the property is concrete, property line to property line. It's just very unfeasible.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Oh, I think this looks good.
We
Anybody?
get the permits to them tomorrow, that way they can speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, please,
Yeah, we got-
That
help me
way-
out. I will get them submitted tomorrow.
Steve, anybody? Really?
I like the presentation. I like
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Does. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, public, we have no public, so I will call the public and close the public at the same time and open it for any discussion. Is there any? None? I'll call for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
before I make my motion, do we need to review the criteria for the CUP request, the A through G? Do we have to do that as part of the findings and all, or?
You should probably reference it, yeah, absolutely, because it is a CUP.
Okay, all right, okay.
We're granting one.
I think we do reference it in our motion, if you want to follow that, or if you want to add some findings of your own, absolutely.
You got all that?
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking to see. Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve case CUP 1-19, the conditional use permit application by 88 Trails Corporation, represented by Chris Baxla of Size Plus, requesting approval of canopy signs larger than normally allowed by the city's sign code to be located on a .49 acre B-2 Old West Commercial Zone property located at 1571 West Apache Trail at the southeast corner of South Ironwood Drive and West Apache Trail, in accordance with the following findings. And I realize I probably should have presented this before the motion. So let me step back. Before I do the motion, there are the criteria that the commission is to use when evaluating this request. And I'll go through them very quickly. If any commissioners have any concern for any of those criteria, please identify them. Criteria A, adequacy of roadways, off-street parking, public facilities. Any concerns?
No.
B, negative impacts arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, lighting, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare. Any concerns?
No.
No.
Okay. C, contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or the negative impact on the neighborhood property values. Any concerns?
No.
D, compatibility with surrounding uses and structures. Any concerns?
No.
E, conformance with the general plan and city policies. Any concerns? No. F, screening and buffering of uses. Concerns?
I don't think it's, some of
think
these
that's
don't even apply.
Really, yeah. G, unique nature of the property, use and/or development's physical characteristics.
I think it's yes, and it is unique to the
It's-
property. But you can leave it in
Well,
or
I don't-
not.
But there's nothing, there's no constraints that are
No.
going to require a reconsideration, okay. All right, so let me then redo the recommended motion. I move the Planning and Zoning Commission approve case CUP 1-19, conditional use permit application by 88 Trails Corporation, represented by Chris Baxla of Signs Plus, requesting approval of canopy signs larger than normally allowed by the city's sign code to be located on a .49 acre B-2 Old West Commercial Zone property located at 1571 West Apache Trail at the southeast corner of South Ironwood Drive and West Apache Trail, in accordance with the following findings. And I submit the two findings, A and B, that were part of the July 2nd staff report. Well, maybe not. The July 9th staff report, and then subject to the following conditions of approval. and I submit the 6 conditions as, again, presented on the July 9th staff report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy?
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanshee.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair, unless an aggrieved individual appeals this to the City Council within 20 days, subject to the fee, subject to the reason, your decision stands, Madam Chair.
Welcome to the community.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah. You're done.
Thank you.
Stick him with a fork. He's done.
Thank you.
Let me go. No old business. We'll move on to new business, which is presentation and discussion of a proposed amendment to Apache Junction City Code, Volume 2, Chapter 1, Zoning Code, Article 1-13, Design Standards, creating Section 1-13-4, Art in Public and Private Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, this is my, I don't know what Joel would call it, monstrosity, abomination, whatever it would be. But in the staff memo, you'll note that the council has taken seriously dressing up the community in the form of art and public art. And it goes way back with dressing up the median and having some art in the median, the placement of the Kachina, et cetera, et cetera. There's discussion in the new roundabout of placing art there. Other cities have required art in private development or a fee in lieu of. So there have been several presentations to the council. Staff worked with council and a consultant to look at other cities, what other cities do for art. And it really came down to really 2 different mechanisms. Some cities will set aside, and again, it's going to be up to the council. This will be, there's 3 pieces to this. One is the creation of a public art commission. That's in the Chapter 2. It'd be just like the Plan Commission or the Library Board. So there are separate ordinance being developed to create an arts board, if you will. And then there would be, if whatever the council decides in terms of a fee for a development. So when someone would get a building permit, they would pay either a fee in lieu of, or they could provide public art that would be reviewed by this commission and again, perhaps by the council. So there are other cities that are doing this in Arizona. Oro Valley has a art in private development, and so they're trying to improve the community through art. Sedona does. I want to say Queen Creek was looking at it. It seems to be kind of just hanging out there. I don't know if they've formally done anything down there, but there has been talk about that. Scottsdale, I think Glendale has some criteria. So anyway, so in the zoning code is really the mechanism to have a developer be required to provide art in private development. So what you have is a draft ordinance. There's no action tonight. It's going to come back on the 23rd. What you have in front of you, though, is kind of an updated draft after our fine city attorney helped me look at it. But I'll just kind of walk through it real quickly just to kind of explain it. So it is in Article 13. Currently, Article 13 talks about design standards. So, but our design standards, the pages, there's not much in there, it just refers you to another document. So this would create a new section, if you will, 1-13-4, which would be art in public and private development. In private development, it would apply to commercial development and multifamily over a certain size. And then for the city, if we do let's say we build a new Flatiron Park and it's in a capital budget, then whatever the budget is, say it's $1 million, 1% would go towards public art. So there is a mechanism in here so that the city also has to do public art on its projects. It may also find a location, say a developer is going to do a multifamily project and they don't want to do public art. They could contribute a fee in lieu of, and then the city could place that art in a public place that's viewable to the public. So some of you may have skimmed through the ordinance. I'll do that real quickly. Again, there's an intent section. This is the scope. Again, this is really what we'll maybe delve into next time, but it really talks about mixed-use development, commercial development, non-residential. Originally, this was set up for 5,000 square feet. I think I lowered it to 2,500, I think over 10 units. The capital budget, anything over $50,000 in the capital budget. And then also paragraph 4 deals with kind of that, if you're doing more than 50%, like a total new building, of building addition. There's some exemptions in here. Again, if it's not allowed, say we get a grant and the grant says, you know, you can't do it here or there or something like that. Federal, county projects, single-family homes would be exempt, so subdivisions would not have to do it. Again, maybe they want to, like Lennar, have a nice entryway, but we would not require public art in a subdivision. Again, multifamily. Certain number 5 and 6 really relate back to the capital budget. So if there's money in the capital budget, but it's 50,000 and we're just going to, you know, resurface the road, that really doesn't count, that now we're gonna do public art. So again, it's really, say we're gonna build a new pool or a new park and you wanna have an art feature out front. So that's the section on exemptions. There's a review process here with an application process. What their narrative is, their budget, site plan, if they're going to place it on their property. That's what this section deals with. The design and location, again, public artwork has to be designed by an artist, not somebody like me. You know, so you have to be a bona fide artist to do it. There are certain things that are allowed and that might not be allowed. So even some things that can be considered art could be an architectural element to a building that's added on to the building, not just something they would do anyway.
What's your definition of number 1 there? At least one team member shall be an artist. What is an artist? I paint murals. I got one I'm painting in my bathroom wall. Does that make me an artist?
Which bathroom, the master bathroom or the? So again, that isn't fully defined here. We don't have this thing wholly fleshed out. Again, what we did is we took about 3 different ordinances and tried to make them into one ordinance. So it's not, this itself is not a work of art, I will guarantee you. That's why we've, I've asked Rudy to chip in here and help us make sure it makes sense. So
Matt wants to know what's your definition of what's art?
what is art? It's in the eye of the beholder. I think there is a definition for that somewhere of what, like in our sign code.
It's
in
in
our
the
sign,
eye of the beholder of an artist.
so yes, so part of this is really what the commission will do too as well.
Yeah.
The idea that someone could propose something that is offensive to Native Americans or something, you know what I'm saying, is so that things can't have to go through a process to determine, okay, we're not going to get something that, again, people might not like it, but I think the idea is to rule out things that are offensive.
Larry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In that vein, in this rather ubiquitous age of political correctness, it seems anymore anybody can find anything offensive. Will there be some kind of process in place when that one standalone rogue person says, I am offended by that, and then all of a sudden everything grinds?
Yeah, so we have these design principles that talks about context, et cetera, in the design principles, but there's also, and again, what should be in zoning and what should be in the commission, and maybe the commission has policies or how they're going to operate. This is kind of nuts and bolts part of it, but there's a section in here that deals with if we're going to place a piece of public art, and again, I'm not so sure it should really even be in the code, in this particular code. It's just, this is an unusual animal for zoning. The idea that we can require public art in commercial development or multifamily or city public works projects, that I think we can codify. But now the idea of having a public involvement process and all that, it doesn't neatly fit into the zoning code. But that's really where there would be I'm looking for the section, this call for artists, there it is.
Yeah.
So this would be the process where the Arts Commission, if you will, would do a call for artists. They would go through an RFP, RFQ process, pick an artist. The artist would have public meetings. There could be community meetings to make sure that before they go design something that no one thinks is appropriate for that site, we would go through this public process.
So the public can, before the piece of artwork or sculpture, whatever it is, before it's
If it's on
constructed,
public property.
public will be able
If it's
to
on
give
public
their
property, if a developer says, yeah, I'm gonna put up this piece of art, then I think the way this is gonna work is that the Arts Commission could say, yeah, we like that piece of art. It's not, something that Larry did. So it is a real piece of art, and you can place that on your property. Now, again, that hasn't been fully fleshed out, whether the Arts Commission is the final arbiter of approving art, or whether that's the council. That's really kind of comes in this other ordinance. But this would be where we're gonna place art on public property. We'd go through this process to design art and kind of meet with the community and then say, yep, everybody thinks this is a wonderful piece of art. Is this gonna go smoothly the first time or whatever? I don't know, but I think these other communities have had success over the long haul of trying to improve the community for the long term. So, and again, some of this again is nuts and bolts. What happens if say it's on a multifamily property, but it has to be viewable, accessible to the public, and now they want to convey that artwork to the city. There's a whole bunch of criteria it would have to meet, have to go through has to be maintained for, some period of time and some warranties and maybe some money in an escrow account to fix it 10 years from now, or, art tends to deteriorate when it's exposed to the elements after X number of years. So, again, there is a lot of that in here. It's again, like I'm saying, it's kind of hard to put this in the zoning code. Requiring art seems like you can do that in the zoning code, but again, even this section here is difficult for me to figure out, well, why do we have all this stuff in here about the finance department? Is that really in the zoning code? It's just, it's not an easy thing to find a home for some of this, and I don't know. We're gonna probably have to have some more internal meetings, but this is really your first introduction to it. What you have on tonight is this version here that's dated July 8th that had a bunch of corrections and a kind of reorganized thing from the original version that you had. Moved some paragraphs around. I think I created, it used to end with M, now it's N because there was a section 15 that's now its own section. Things like that I think helped it flow better. But again, this is going to go to the council, I think, in September now, I believe, because the council's scheduled. They're not meeting August 20th, I believe. So Labor Day weekend, the 30th, there wouldn't be a chance for a council cycle. The idea is to get this arts board kind of in the next cycle of seeking members for you're all familiar with the process of how to get on a city committee. They want to kind of get this arts board started, I think, by November. So the commission can start. The idea is that if there is a fee, there is an arts commission, and there is a zoning aspect to it, all those things kind of would happen at the same time. You could seat the commission perhaps in January or something like that. They could spend an evening going through 4 different colored sheets with Joel on ethics and open meetings and all the 5, is there 5 colored sheets now? So getting that commission up and running is probably going to be in January per se, And so the idea was this would go to the council on September 17th. Who knows whether, hopefully it'll be in a better shape when you see it a couple weeks from now. We're set up for a public hearing on July 23rd here and September 17th at the council. Now, you may decide that on the 23rd, you're not quite ready and you want to refer it for a couple weeks or something. That's fine too. So it's not the end of the world if it doesn't get adopted on July 23rd, because the council probably won't see it until September 17th at the earliest, and I wouldn't expect them maybe to adopt it in the first pass either.
I want to share with you, it's kind of funny that it happened today. I volunteer at the Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Got a phone call today from a lady who wanted to know who she needed to talk to, because the Kachina's leaning.
We're aware of that. We have been aware of that for some time.
I mean, what, I drove by there, what's leaning?
That wasn't by design?
What is?
And I think
what
it
do you
actually
think?
lost part of it
I don't-
already or
I don't
something,
see
I'm not
anything-
sure.
I mean, I didn't,
The idea of that was a donation, and the city could have it up for some period of time, and then the city could
no,
have
no, no,
some
I'm
sort of.
talking about it leaning.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I know,
You
but,
know.
but,
What'd she use, a
again,
micrometer?
I don't know. I think people notice that it is leaning,
But
didn't.
I don't notice that it is, that's what
Oh.
I'm saying.
I-
Are you saying it really is
I
leaning?
think we've heard that. And I've also heard that a
Yeah.
piece of it fell off or something. So
Oh.
I don't know if they had to weld it back on or whatever. But again, it was a great gesture. Again, you could argue the appropriateness in Apache land for something that's for Hopis, but again, it's native to Arizona, so.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was getting at, is that, you know, there might be somebody offended, who knows, but.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
So, I would imagine that, at least in the public areas, some of the artwork done or sculptures could have some inherent value to them. I imagine then that the city will have to be responsible for insuring them, and that'll be part of the cost, I guess, would be insuring
Yeah,
them
if it
against
were, the way
damage
this.
or theft or something.
Sure. The way, they would certainly be anchored, but there is a mechanism in here for insurance, certificates of insurance, that they're, you know, to the benefit of the city. And the city would add it, I would think, with anything of value that we insure as well.
Well, it's no different than the
The borough and the,
bronze statues
Right,
out
it just
there.
may be, there just
They
may
were
be a lot,
donated,
right,
and-
but there'll be a lot more of
Yeah,
it, that's all.
Yeah.
That's, could get pricey.
so again, it's kind of, at least right now, it's 3 different ordinances. Maybe some of the mechanics stuff here could go somewhere else. We haven't figured out where that goes yet, but.
why don't they just make is there no way to make an ordinance where they have just one, for creating the commission and all this stuff, and put it all into one, and then over in this section, instead of a 1-day 13-4 over here, and then another one creating the commission and something, why can't they just?
Yeah, the way and Joel could answer this better, but like, if there's gonna be a fee, it has to be in chapter 4, volume
Can't
1,
just refer
chapter.
it and say, go over there.
No, if the council's gonna set a fee on a building permit, it's gonna have to go in chapter 4, so that's
Okay.
a given. We have all our boards and commissions set up in volume 1, chapter 2.
Okay.
So, part of it is like I said, maybe it all stays in the zoning code, that the finance department's in charge of the money. That's in here now, but it didn't really belong in the creation necessarily of the commission, because that really sets forth the organization and setting forth the commission, and the actual day-to-day stuff of administering an arts program. Some of the other zoning codes don't have all this stuff in it, so that could be a different document. I don't know how that would, where that
Larry,
would be
you
or
have
whatever,
a
but.
technical aspect to this, and you got a value aspect to this, so maybe think of it in those terms.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll go back and we're gonna revisit this. We just wanted to get a draft to you, and then we'll be back and have some other eyes view it, et cetera. We'll be back on the 23rd. That's noticed for a public hearing.
All righty, thank you.
Okay. I do have to announce that I lost my bet with Joel
You lost your bet?
for lunch. I said we'd be done by 8. I thought, you know, a couple of signs, a couple of revocations, we'd be out of here, but
So we gapped too much?
no, not necessarily.
Joel told us ahead of time.
I don't know how to,
Yeah, Joel told
he
us.
called you?
Drag it out,
Yeah,
we didn't know what he
called
meant
it-
by that.
He called me
just-
up and he said, make sure this meeting goes
asked-
at least till
You asked the
8:30.
same question 3 times?
Yeah. Any information and reports?
No.
Director's report is presentation and discussion on the proposed Planning and Zoning Commission general plan.
Oh, I should let you know, I'm sorry, on number 9, that we did submit the active transportation plan for state planning award. I don't know when we're gonna find out, so maybe that's upcoming events, et cetera, et cetera. So we did submit that about 3 weeks ago. They have a jury and all that stuff. We'll see if the active transportation plan goes anywhere in terms of a Arizona Planning Association award.
Okay, well, you can't really announce that because I already went on to number 10.
Okay, sorry. I could put that in the director's report then. So, yes, so we are working on, as you know, the general plan update. It's updated every 10 years. We were set to adopt it, or have it on the ballot on August 20th. I think that's been moved to August 5th, I think is the first Tuesday. August 4th is the first, 4/20. Okay. So it's going to be on the ballot on August 4th, 2020. So that moved our schedule up a couple of weeks. So we're hoping to have this to the council adopted in January 17th. So, because you have to do an informational pamphlet and all that stuff. So this, essentially we've had all the department heads draft their section, kind of cleaned it up. Joel spent his 4-day weekend of looking at the previous ordinance and also reading the entire draft of the general plan. So Sydney, who's not here tonight, our planner, has been kind of spearheading the effort of pulling all the documents together, making it look like it's one author instead of 9 authors. And then Joel has helped with doing that. So now we're ready to bring it to you folks as it's been done historically, usually a couple chapters at a time. So I'm going to pull this up, and you don't have to decide this. So this is going to be on the agenda. Let me see if I can make that bigger. So, so tonight we had those 3 items. On the 23rd, we have the general plan as a new business item, and we'll try to do a couple of the chapters at a time. We're going to have this ordinance that we just talked about a minute ago. We have a rezoning for Dutch Brothers coming up that's being proposed. And so my point being here is we also down below, this is a calendar we keep, so we keep track of what's got to be done when and what's going to what committees. We have another couple rezonings or PD amendment that's coming up. Water company's doing an amendment. There's a plat by U-Haul. There's some city-initiated rezonings that we're going to do. This final plat will just go to the council for Kaufman's. This is another rezoning that would be a city-initiated one, if you will. That goes to the council. Blount's talking about something, and we have a townhome. So anyway, what I wanted to, my general thing here is you can see all these meetings we're scheduling for the general plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is a lot in that there's other items that are going to get slid in here. So I'm kind of getting your preference on, okay, at 8:30, we're going to start talking about the general plan. And I think that just kind of is mind-numbing for us to do that. And so I think one opportunity on here is the 30th. There's 5 Tuesdays this month.
Yeah.
So we could have, and what we would do is probably do the Dutch Brothers first, then we would do the arts thing, then we do the general plan, just because the public is here for that. The 30th, we could slide in a meeting on the 30th. I'm proposing something radical that's not well received by others, is that we could do this on a marathon session on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we could do from 9 to 3, 9 to 4, or we can do 7 Tuesday nights. Or we can find some other nights that aren't our night, but maybe it's a Wednesday night or a Thursday night instead of trying to conduct regular business and then trying to devote the attention that it really needs. So I'm flexible on what you want to do. We do want to start on the 23rd. If you want to have something on the 30th, when we haven't had meetings since May 14th, so it's not like we're meeting ourselves to death. But I just think to give the plan its due justice, I don't want to start it at 8:30.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
I agree with that, too.
I'm okay if you wanted to pick, we're all free on Fridays, but some people actually work and have jobs and wouldn't want to, or volunteer or whatever they do. So if you want to do it on Wednesday nights, I do think we should just do it not on the night of the regular meetings. That's my only.
So Wednesday.
And I'll let you think about that. You don't have to decide tonight, but maybe next week we can
Yeah.
decide after you've thought about it for a week.
Let me just get a show of hands. Does anybody totally disagree with doing it all on one day?
Yes.
I would say maybe two
Well,
cram
let's
sessions.
do this.
Not a one day, all of
What-
it, but
what
maybe
about
two.
No on one day. We have one?
No.
No?
I can do it.
No? Yes?
I'm okay doing one.
No, what I'm saying is the 23rd, we would have the meeting on the 23rd, then the 30th, so we would have 2 meetings and see how far we get. And then whatever's left could be a long day or 2 half-days, whatever you decide. Or we do 7 Tuesday nights.
I would be open to one day, but I think the quality of the work would diminish as the day went
Well,
on.
sometimes, don't
So
What if we
to-
did two
I think, if-
half-days?
well, I think,
4
you know,
hours.
Larry's suggesting a couple of optional nights. I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours at a pop. I think that would be sufficient.
And I'm,
I agree.
I'm okay with that.
Wednesdays for a couple hours until this thing is
Yeah,
done?
just do it a couple times
I
instead
just-
of dragging it
every
out 7 times.
I just can't do the middle Wednesdays of the month.
Which ones?
The middle Wednesday, I think it's the third Wednesday of each month because of the noise ordinance with the police I'm on.
Okay.
That's the day they pick to do that board or that panel.
Madam Chair, sorry, Larry. There's, I forget how many chapters. Some chapters are longer than others. Some are very short, and I think some you would get through very quickly.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Some, like the land use element, no, you're not going to get through that one quickly. You're going to want to go through that because there's a bunch of attachments. But some of the other chapters, I think, will go fairly quickly. So I just wanted to add that in.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
having that in mind, what Joel just said, maybe, Larry, if you could come up with something as far as splitting it up, the ones that we can knock out real quick, and then other ones, you know, that we task specifically for, you know, for a couple hours, if it's gonna take us that long.
and they don't have to be done in order.
Right, and that's what
I
I
mean,
was
you
coming.
Not
can do
necessarily, yeah, there's
1.1
no-
and 1.6 and 1.27,
So maybe,
you know.
maybe one of the monster ones, and then a couple of, you know, the shorter ones at a time, you know, whatever the breakdown might
Okay.
be, that is gonna be palatable for everybody to work.
All right, so we'll kick it off on the 23rd. We'll have a special meeting on the 30th, but which you'll have to vote on, I guess, on the 23rd.
What 30th of,
Of July.
Of July.
Because that's the fifth.
okay,
That's the
That's
fifth
the
Tuesday.
fifth
so there would
Tuesday.
not be normally be any meetings.
so you want to do it on
So I think that's,
Tuesday, July 30th,
Yep,
you're saying?
that'll be.
yes.
And everybody can meet?
And that meeting is to do what exactly?
To start going through the elements. You're going to get this whole document, next Wednesday, you're going to be mailed the entire document. So you will have, you can do what Joel did and read the whole thing in a weekend.
Oh, he can do
So
it.
you will have the
We can
entire
all get
doc.
together
But
and,
we
We're
know
not
that
going to give you
Joel-
the document in chapters and say, you're going to actually get the whole document. You'll kind of get a feeling for which ones are 3 pages and which ones are 9 or 10 pages.
We
and
know
then-
that Joel doesn't have a life, though, and if he doesn't
Well, that's the
have
only
this-
reason
if
why
he
I
doesn't have
proposed a
this stuff to
Saturday.
do, he wouldn't have any fun.
he's not laughing over there. I don't. I
So
mean,
the
Clark,
third-
do you have any idea about what length of time? Are we talking 50 hours? Are we talking 250 hours?
No, again, if you were going to do, it'd be at most 20 hours. There's 12 elements. Again, some of them you get done in a half hour. Some
Yeah.
of them you might get done
So 20
in,
hours.
you know,
Talking 20, 25 hours.
How much
Yeah.
bigger is the new one?
It's different than that one.
Yeah.
So if we did
it's
it,
not much. It's about 100 and some pages. With the graphics, it might be 120
What
pages.
I'd like to avoid, Larry, is marathon sessions till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
So if we set timeframes on these, even
Yeah.
if we got the great big one, but we only work on it for 2 hours at night, then
Yeah.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
So yeah, on the 30th, it'll be better. Maybe we'll spend an hour on the 23rd. And then on the 30th, we'll go from 7 to 9.
7 to 9, that's
Yeah.
all I wanted to know.
And then, on the, let's see here, the 13th, I'm not sure if we had anything scheduled right now. So we could do, which is your first meeting in August. That could be, again, a 2-hour meeting. But then on the 20th, that doesn't seem to work, so we probably won't even talk about it that night, and then all of a sudden, we're kind of into that schedule. But if you want to, again, what we don't have is all these items, and
Okay, well,
we've talked to these people, we don't know when they're going to get their complete application and things like that.
we'll meet
So
them.
how about on the 23rd? So
Yeah,
the only Wednesday night that doesn't work is the
The third Wednesday of each.
third Wednesday.
Yeah.
So why don't I come up with a proposed calendar, we'll get it out to you, and then see how it goes. But at most, we'll only meet 2 hours at a time. Is everybody okay with that?
That's the plan.
so other than our next meeting on the 23rd, then we'll start on the 30th and,
And then, but on the 23rd, you'll all agree to a calendar
yeah.
of those nights, whether they're Wednesday nights or whatever they're gonna be.
I'm leaning towards Wednesdays. Just so we can get the rest of these.
I can't do any Wednesday.
You can't do it
No
Wednesday?
Wednesdays?
Wednesday's the one day for,
I,
you're probably,
I facilitate on a nonprofit every Wednesday night.
So how are Mondays? We're free with the Board of Adjustment till October 7th. We don't know of any other
Not
cases.
necessarily.
The only thing that conflicts with the, our Monday councils, right?
Yes.
So if we did the second Monday and the fourth Monday,
second and fourth Monday.
so you might have a Monday night and a Tuesday night or something, though.
Yeah, I can do that.
Put it together.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. So
Mondays and
Mondays.
Tuesdays, second and fourth. Sounds good.
We haven't talked about Thursday. Now, Thursday's all by
No.
himself out there.
Thursday, we're fine with Thursday, too.
What is
Let's
Thursday?
do Thursday then.
What
How
is
many hours are we looking at, do you think?
I'm guessing, I'm saying at the most 20,
I can
so that's
do all
5
on
meetings.
Thursday.
and we're gonna knock
Yeah,
2 of them
okay.
out by the end of this month, so it's
Library
only
for
really
one,
maybe 3
one
more
for a second, but other
And we could
than-
always, if we're coming up short, maybe schedule like a
special meeting or something like
Saturday
that.
long one to kind of catch up or knock it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw
So
the-
again, what we need to
Coffee, I can go all day.
Just to keep it on schedule, we'd like to be done, this says October, if we could get done by September, that's even great. Matt McNulty has to put all this in a graphic document so that, because you're gonna have a public hearing. Once you're done with it, you'll actually get a new version of it that looks pretty, has all the graphics in it that, Matt McNulty, do you know who Matt is? He does our
Yeah.
website and everything. So Matt will try to, he needs time to put it together. You could end up with a public hearing, say, on October 22nd as your final, because these are just work sessions. The public's not going to be able to talk during these sessions,
Yeah.
but say October 22nd, you're going to have a public hearing, you recommend adoption, then it's going to go to the council, you know, in late November, early December with adoption in January. We don't know how long the council's going to want to spend with it. That's why we need a little bit of flexibility.
Max said add, when you're doing the calendaring, not only the second and fourth Mondays, consider every Thursday.
Okay.
Until this is done, yeah.
Throw that in there and decide, and that's every Thursday.
Yeah, and again, that may work where we're just, you know, kind of plowing through it, but again, I think we're all in agreement. I don't want to do this after a public hearing on Superstar.
I like the idea of doing it some other time other than on our regular night
Oh, yeah.
with other
Yeah,
work.
I agree with that.
I would too. I'd
Just
like to
keep our regular
maybe
work and then
4 or
we'll
5 hour
do,
Saturdays.
we'll do the general plan
Right,
all by
well,
itself.
we're kind of set up to just kind of kick it off in 2 weeks. So we'll do it, but
Yeah.
again, you may just decide, you know, maybe Sydney stands up and says, here's the 12 elements, and then we adjourn. But then the 30th is when we kind of roll up our sleeves.
Okay,
So again, that week, we could meet on July 30th and whatever that Thursday is, the 2nd of August or
Yeah.
something.
That's the first.
The 1st of August. We may do 2 nights that week or
Sure.
something. All right, I'll propose a schedule and we'll get it out to you.
So you got 3 proposals you're gonna send out?
No, it's gonna be 1 proposal, but considering everything you've said here tonight.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's all I have, Madam Chair, if I can get back to the
okay.
agenda.
We need a motion for selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on July 23rd, 2019 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
Do we need to make a motion here also to include the 30th?
I think we're going to do that at the 20.
on the 23rd?
Do that on the 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure you put that on the calendar. Okay, then we have a motion,
All right.
or not on the calendar, on the agenda. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Rudy?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanshee.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, and if I have, unless I hear any objection, I'm adjourning this meeting at 8:40. Good night, everyone.